Hey everyone, Iris here. Today I want to talk about the unseen challenges of working in HR. When I first started my career in HR and recruiting, I had no idea that due to my role, I would be held to a level of professionalism and objectivity that other teams really weren't. I want to talk about a lot of the challenges that come with being in an HR and recruiting role. Now, some companies' HR teams are a little bit more lenient than others, but I'd say for the most part, across the board, when you're in an HR role, these are challenges that just come along with that role that you just have to deal with as part of your job. So the first piece of it is it gets pretty lonely. Because we deal with a lot of bad news a lot of the time, giving performance and coaching conversations, sometimes in conjunction with people's managers, we can't necessarily be friends with everyone because it tends to get awkward when you have to cross that line. When you're in HR, you really have to make sure you have a great team around you because those folks are really going to be the ones going through everything with you and that you're really going to be close to because you can't necessarily be close to everyone else at the company just due to the fact that your role has to maintain a certain professionalism, confidentiality, and it could get awkward when you have hard conversations. Now, this one's tough for me, and I think throughout the years I've learned how to walk the line between being friends with people in other departments versus staying in my lane of HR and recruiting. And this is more so for HR than recruiting, but at a lot of companies, recruiting and HR are combo roles. You are expected to have that same level of professionalism in recruiting, especially since you're privy to a lot of the information that HR is also privy to. Another challenge of working in HR is navigating our ever so confusing healthcare system in the US. Not only is it super confusing if you're out there in the marketplace trying to find benefits, but when you are working with brokers in-house at a company, you are dealing with so much paperwork, legalities, red tape, trying to get people the answers they need and the information they need, and also trying to explain it in a way that other teams will understand. And those teams don't necessarily look at benefits and compliance docs all day long. They don't necessarily know how to interpret it very well. So you are left to essentially explain it in layman's terms as much as possible so that people understand. When people come to me with benefits questions, they end up getting frustrated because they have a hard time just understanding why things don't go a certain way. And we end up getting blamed for the fact that benefits are run a certain way, but we actually don't control benefits. We are just herding the benefits and shepherding them along so that employees can get the most benefit out of their benefits. Now, I mentioned this before, but confidentiality is a really, really big piece of HR. If you can't maintain confidentiality within your role, you really have lost your good reputation within the company and people won't come to you anymore with their issues or concerns. Maintaining confidentiality is so important because you're dealing with a lot of sensitive issues and you want people to be able to trust you so that you can resolve these issues before they turn into bigger problems down the road. It's really hard for me to be friends with people in other departments because, well, it's hard to keep secrets. And they're not necessarily secrets, but it's information that you just don't want to bother people with. So it's hard to walk that line when sometimes those people in other departments become your friend because they're hoping they can get a little bit of information about what's going on in the company, and they may be leaning on you for that, and you have to make sure that nothing slips up and that you're not sharing information that really is none of their business. The way that my old boss used to put it is, I don't need to give you this information because I don't need you to stress about it. And I loved thinking about it like that because what we don't know won't hurt us. Things get resolved without us needing to know every little detail of what was happening behind the scenes. And she was right. I don't need the stress going home every night and thinking about how are we going to handle this situation and what are we going to do about this person when I don't really need to. She's taking the stress of that and she's protecting me from it. So maintaining a level of confidentiality in any role is tough, but when it comes to HR and when you're privy to so much information, it's just that little bit more tough. Another challenge of working in HR is the fact that you sometimes become the scapegoat. Within this role, you're really acting as a partner to leadership teams and hiring managers and really helping them plan the organization and understand any employee concerns that are coming up from a lower level and trickling upward. A lot of times leadership will have solutions, say the COO or CEO, as to how to fix these issues, and HR will more than likely be the people who execute it. And so what ends up happening is that HR gets blamed for a lot of the hard, tough things that we implement when really it's being trickled down to us and it's our job to execute it. I'm not saying these are always bad things, but sometimes they are, and sometimes we become the scapegoat because it's just part of our role. Another piece of HR that I think has become more and more important recently as companies have evolved and culture has become very important is that HR a lot of the time is expected to perpetuate the culture and do it in the most organic way possible, like it was just an accident and we created the most perfect culture ever. We are in the role of putting together events and trying to essentially manufacture happiness and fun times to perpetuate a culture that really the employees have created. I've always thought of it as HR is there to say yes as much as possible to things that the employees want to see happen and want to do. But a lot of times companies believe that HR should be creating the culture. They've even created the term head of people and culture instead of director of HR. And I think it's really funny that this culture piece has fallen onto HR when it's really the responsibility of everyone at the company to help create that culture and put on events and really make it a fun place to work. This is more so for recruiting, but I would say that another challenge of recruiting and HR is that everyone always thinks that what they need is completely urgent and you have to drop everything you're doing to help them with everything they need, especially when it comes to them losing an employee and they need a new hire immediately. A big misconception of HR and recruiting is that we are just pushing paper and not really busy a lot of the time, and that couldn't be further from the truth. We have a lot on our plate, and it's very difficult when we're trying to manage expectations of hiring managers who are coming to us and asking why their role hasn't been filled 2 days after an employee has left. And we are just trying to let them know that we have other things on our plate. We understand it's urgent and we're trying our best to get it done. At the end of the day, we are just trying to keep the company running from an organizational perspective. Now, I wanted to make this video just to shed some light on how difficult it is to work in an HR role. And that's not to say that a lot of other roles aren't difficult to be in, but HR certainly comes with challenges of keeping an entire organization happy and moving forward and excited about what they're doing, more so than other teams. If you work with an HR team, I would encourage you to just be a little bit more understanding because it's a really, really difficult job. And I really, really love it. HR people, they're just like us. Like I said in the beginning of the video, HR deals with a lot of difficult conversations a lot of the time. There's performance conversations that need to happen, and we're delivering a lot of bad news to employees. They can't help but take it personally when you're having these conversations with them. And that's always been the most difficult part for me, is having to have a difficult conversation with an employee and then go about my day like nothing has happened, even though I know I probably affected them in a pretty big way and the conversation needed to happen. If you like this video, please be sure to hit the like button and subscribe for more videos and content like this coming your way. Thanks so much, and see you in a bit.